Nick Wright, host of First Things First on Fox Sports 1 and the podcast, What's Right with Nick Wright on iTunes and YouTube. Do you remember players getting a basketball after they've scored their first points?
Never heard of it.
I haven't either.
Never heard of it.
I haven't either.
Maybe what do you do for teams that have multiple rookies in game one? Cut it in half like I was going to say like Samson, but that's his hair. Who's the king? The king that had to cut the baby in half? I don't remember. I don't know what you do. So, yeah, I've never heard of it. Also, the in-season tournament final, because the in-season tournament does count for your stats, but the final itself oddly does not because it's an 83rd game, which is probably something they need to adjust. But those, from a holistic perspective, are your first points. The whole thing seems nonsense. Also, my biggest takeaway from it, Giannis is on edge. Like, I know that they're 17-7. I understand he just obviously had an unbelievable game. I guess I had two takeaways. One is this is actually sign of success from the in-season tournament because the Pacers and Bucks have like real friction now. You know what I mean? They played in a meaningful game. Indiana won. And so now that is like a budding potential rivalry. So I like that part of it. I don't think that happens without the in-season tournament. And obviously, LeBron doesn't get to his 5th ring, just one shy of Michael now with the in-season tournament. But also Giannis, I think the Bucks thought this was going to be more seamless. And I have real concerns about Milwaukee's ability to guard anybody. Obviously, Giannis is great, and Dame is very, very good still. I don't know if he's great still, but I think that was more of the canary in the coal mine of all this, that Giannis is maybe more uneasy than we've seen him at this point in the season before.
Yeah, I was really surprised that you could have done it with a little bit more decorum of, hey, I would like to have that basketball. He's not aware that the Pacers have a tradition, I'm guessing. But, I mean, he's chasing somebody down as if somebody has, punched him. They're just going after a basketball. And
Draymond wasn't even at the game.
No,
so that's not going to happen. Have you checked in with your dear friend Reggie Miller about, is this actually a Pacers tradition? You guys are talking about calling JJ Redick. You call JJ Redick, he's just going to talk about how all sports television shows suck and how we just need to dissect what horns action is. Instead, you should call Reggie and ask him.
Well, it's early. It's early on the West Coast for Reg.
Fair enough.
Before I ask him that. So. But this might be a tradition with Rick Carlisle's Pacers. That would
Well, then we need to call Dirk. It's late in Germany. See if he had the tradition going on in Dallas. I don't know. Call somebody that would know.
It feels like the Draymond Green suspended indefinitely is like the commissioner's exempt list in the NFL.
So it felt like a cop-out to me. I want to see how many games it is. Because I would have liked how many games it ends up being. I would have liked it. It felt like once again, and now I'm going to sound like an old man, where Adam Silver is taking too soft of a touch. Like he's going through some things. He needs some help. All of that might be true. He also 3 times his last 26 games has executed various UFC moves on players on the court, and 4 times in the last 15 months. Dan, you know how like when they show you, hey, here are in the last 2 years, the 40-point triple-doubles in the NBA, and it's all just Luka and Jokic's names on an 8-man list. If we were to be like, hey, in the last 2 years, here are the 4 most violent acts in the NBA, just 4 Draymond things. And even if he's going through things, even if he needs help, I personally would have liked it to say he is suspended for at least X amount of games, and the suspension will be indefinite post that until he carries out these benchmarks. Because I don't say this euphemistically, he is by the literal definition out of control. And one other thing, his post-game explanation does not jive with the punishment. The whatever we want to call it. The post-game explanation was, I did not mean to do that. That is not, if we are going to take you at your word, which is very, very hard to do, then the help he needs is either acting classes or some calisthenics exercises to be more limber, not what they are referring to. So the whole thing stinks to me. And yeah, I feel badly for Steph, but I blame the Warriors. Dan really prioritized ring night the way I guess the Pacers prioritize first basketballs, and they never punished him for the Jordan Poole thing, which derailed not only that season, that thing's got a long tail. Yeah. It might have derailed Draymond. It might have ruined Jordan Poole's career. I don't know. Like, the whole thing stinks.
Yeah, I think the blame starts with the Golden State Warriors. They have been enablers, and to the highest degree. The fact that you knock out Jordan Poole, you don't get suspended. You get awarded a 4-year, $100 million contract. Draymond knows whatever I do during the regular season, okay, but I'll be there in the postseason. Well, that's not the case anymore. In the next 4 years, you have him and that personality before he takes over for Charles Barkley on TNT.
So a couple things. One, so let's talk about the second thing you said first. Am I just too, reactionary right now to say these things are greatly hurting his ability to do exactly that? Take over for Charles Barkley on TNT? Like that Draymond, by the time we get there, will the contemporary NBA fan, when they hear Draymond Green, will they think, man, one of the greatest defensive players ever, the second or third most important cog in a true dynasty, or will they think lunatic? And so to me, that is more in flux than previously.
Maybe.
And to your to your point that, but I'll be there for the playoffs. I'm good in the playoffs. Not if you cost your team making the playoffs. Like, the Warriors are in real trouble now.
Oh, no, I'm talking about previous years.
Yes.
Now it's caught up to them because this is his personality. And now all of a sudden, they're not going to be there in May and June.
Also, I would be remiss to not, I'll just be totally honest. I don't have this full thought completed, and that's, risky to ever just go ahead and live with it. But Jordan Poole's 80 pounds lighter than him, much smaller. And then the three guys in the last year he's attacked are European players. And I'm not saying there is anything intrinsic about European players, but I do think that would be an odd statistical coincidence given the percentage of players that are European versus otherwise. I just don't, ever since he slapped LeBron in the groin area, I haven't seen him do any of that. He shoved Donovan Mitchell from behind. Like, where's the Draymond Green, squaring up with Paul George? Where's the Draymond Green? He kicked Steven Adams, who's a big, strong guy, but he kicked him in the groin. Where are the instances? Draymond just strikes me as, at least potentially fraudulently tough. Obviously, tough defender, great player, and all those things. But the extracurricular stuff, none of it has seemed like a fair fight. And even if you take the European stuff outside of it, you have Sabonis laying on the ground.
Yeah.
You have Gobert not looking at him. And you have Nurkic having no idea this is coming. None whatsoever. None of it is, kind of a fair fight, so to speak.
Yeah, he's cowardly tough. Cowardly tough,
yeah.
Yes.
That's how I feel.
We're talking to Nick Wright, host of First Things First on Fox Sports 1 and host of What's Right with Nick Wright on iTunes and YouTube. Let's recap your weekend with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay. What do you mean?
How
I dealt with it?
Yeah, you recap. You recap.
Recap. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you recap.
I misunderstood.
Yeah, you recap your weekend with your Chiefs.
So I do not believe in blaming the officials, and I will not in this case. I understand the anger towards them, though, from Mahomes and Andy. And everyone, in my opinion, including, recently, I think the commissioner, is missing the anger. The anger is not Kadarius Toney was not lined up off sides. The anger was, as credit to Dan Orlovsky, as he pointed out, he was lined up offside 6 times in that exact spot throughout the game. The next night on Monday Night Football, Jalen Waddle a couple times was lined up offsides. We saw this. There is a reason that Andy had coached 25,172 plays prior to that when it had never been called, because either the refs don't care about it, or when they first see it, they do give you a warning. And you then adjust. And folks rolled their eyes at that. And the analogous NFL situation that I would use is we watch every week football, the play clock get to 0. You could take a screenshot, it's at 0, the ball is not snapped, but everyone understands for some weird reason, you actually get like 0 minus 0.7 seconds. Like you get an extra beat to snap it. If you have been operating like that the entire game, and then a team with a minute left, the moment it goes 0, you throw the flag, and you're like, hey, rules are rules. I would understand the frustration. And lastly, because there is, I think, a bit of misinformation out there, because the NBC broadcast after the game, they were like, yeah, it was called once 2 years ago, twice last year, but it's been called 11 times this year. It's a point of emphasis this year. That's wildly misleading because I looked it up. Prior to this week's football, it had been called 11 times. 8 of them were on offensive linemen in those tush-push situations where lining up a little offsides is a massive advantage, and that is a different, unique circumstance. It had been called 3 times on wide receivers all year. So I get the frustration, and I'm old enough to remember Tom Brady streaking after officials into the tunnel on Monday Night Football. Like, competitive guys can get fired up and upset. So I'm not mad at Mahomes about it. And I think I'm the last one left that the Chiefs will be fine. But it was a tough circumstance paired with the previous week when everyone agreed it was pass interference and the Chiefs took the high road to a man on.
Yeah, I give Mahomes a hall pass. Not that he needs one from me, but, in the moment, this play is erased. He's not quite sure why it's erased. He's angry. There's passion. I'm not sure why they didn't call it the other times. The fact that you don't look over and you check with the official just so he can give you acknowledgement, which he didn't do.
It's a mistake.
Yes.
It's a total mistake, and the Chiefs have to own it. And it is a symptom of the overall bigger thing that has plagued them all year, which is wide receiver lack of attention to detail. You know what I mean? So that's why. And I should say this just to be fair. I think the defense had been playing great after the first couple drives. I think they would have stopped the Bills. But it wasn't 4 seconds left in the game. It was a minute 15. They would have been up 4. So the Bills could have driven down the field and still won the game. So there were other factors there. And yes, the Chiefs need to be sharper about it. But this whole, the immediacy of, oh my God, it was an obvious call. You have to make that call. That's nonsense. That's still, I think, folks upset about how the Super Bowl ended who think the Chiefs owe the league multiple calls throughout the course of the season.
Maybe. I understand the Chiefs with the interference at Lambeau. But, there are a couple other things. Imagine if Kelsey throws that ball or it gets knocked down. What would we be talking about in that moment? Because you're in field goal range right there. So he'd be throwing that ball and almost got knocked down. The other part of it that's more alarming for me is if you watch Tony, first of all, you don't need to be all the way up on the line of scrimmage. You're not going to the end zone. He only went 10 yards and did it down and out. And then he's open and Mahomes doesn't throw and he gestures back and then his head goes down and then he stops. And then Travis has this unbelievable play. He's wide open, then he goes into the end zone. The body language with Tony was more disturbing, and he has not played well. And there's a reason why the Giants gave up on him. So that would be a bigger issue with that. If you look at him and the body language on that play, he would get credit for being a heads-up play, but really it wasn't.
You don't think he knew Travis was going to do that and was playing possum?
No.
Like, I'm going to get him. They're not going to pay attention to me right now if I look like I'm angry at Mahomes. 5D chess. No, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, and listen, I will say this. I am shocked at the amount of revisionist history that's going on with the Tyreek Hill trade right now. They won the Super Bowl. They were the highest scoring team. They had the league MVP. They scored 38 in the Super Bowl, and it allowed them to build out this defense. I would do that trade again, but I would also be lying if I didn't say I watched Monday Night Football and watched DeAndre Hopkins be the best player on the field at various points and say that would have been nice.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? And he was available, was not crazy expensive. They could have made that work. They chose to want to prioritize the development of Tony, Sky Moore, and the kid who I think is excellent, Rashee Rice, the kid they drafted this year. They wanted them to get the snaps. They wanted them to get the reps, so they didn't go prioritize an aging wide receiver. That does appear to be a mistake. There's no way around it.
It's great to talk to you.
I miss you. I thought you were mad at me or something. You guys, you guys haven't had me on in quite some time. I don't know what's going on. Busy.
But you're usually busy. Like we try sometimes, and then you got a podcast, and then you got other things going on, and I always want to be respectable.
I find a way to do it.
Okay.
And it's less about our professional relationship than our personal relationship, which the last time I text you, I was talking about taking you to dinner, and you just responded with a thumbs up emoji, but no date, no time, no confirmation. So, it's still just floating out there in the ether. At some point, I assume.
But you have to take more of an initiative, not just dinner. You have to say, dinner at this restaurant, how does this sound? Like, if you're going to date somebody, you wouldn't go. Yeah, but you wouldn't go, dinner? You would say.
Yeah, because I'm not trying to sleep with you, Dan. Trying to talk sports and have a bottle of wine with you. I don't think I need to woo you, but maybe I've misplaced the relationship.
Nothing wrong with being wooed. Just saying.
Okay, goodbye.
All right, see you, buddy.
See you later.
Yeah, that's Nick Wright, host of First Things First on Fox Sports 1 and his podcast, What's Right, with Nick Wright on iTunes and YouTube.